This episode of In the Bite Dock Talk is brought to you by Release Ruler. Release Ruler, patented weight estimating fish rulers using growth chart research to provide fish measurement solutions for safe release. Available online at www.releaseruler.com.
Welcome to this edition of Dock Talk. I'm your host, Dale Wills. And this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about Cuba. You know, nearly 2 years after the U.S. announced that would be loosening the travel restrictions to Cuba, you know, the two countries just agreed on regularly scheduled flights. And, you know, the borders are still not freely open to American citizens, but as long as this trip falls within one of the 12 purposes, you're able to travel to Cuba. And you know, Cuba's been getting a lot of press lately among the dock and the dock talk, and there's a lot of boat owners, sport fishing enthusiasts who want to make that 90-mile trip south of Key West to Havana, do a little Havana daydreaming. One of the purposes which allow legal travel is a sport fishing tournament falls under the athletic or sports competition purpose. And our Dock Talk guest today is the president of the Stewart Sailfish Club, and he's been planning and preparing an unprecedented trip with the club to go down and fish the June 2016 Hemingway Billfish Tournament. And I'd like to welcome our guest, Tom Dyer. Tom, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here, and thanks for having us.
Thank you for coming. And I guess let's talk a little bit about the Stewart Sailfish Club and then how this trip has come to fruition.
Well, the Stewart Sailfish Club is one of the oldest sport fishing and game conservation clubs in America, and this year is our 75th anniversary. So quite a historic milestone for any club to survive for 75 years. And we wanted to do something very special for our members that would be memorable and would be fitting of our 75th anniversary.
Sure.
So I wrote to the tournament director of the Hemingway Billfish Tournament. As you know, it's an invitation-only tournament, and explained to him the history of the club and our commitment to game fish conservation, and requested an invitation. And son of a gun, about 3 days later, I got an email back from the tournament director, whose name is Domingo Novo, inviting the club to come and fish the 66 Hemingway. So we were just thrilled to have the opportunity, and I thought if we got 15 boats to go, I'd be thrilled.
Yeah, so there's a good interest in it then.
Very high level of interest, and as of this week, we're up to 53 boats committed to go.
Is that right? 50? Wow. So you got an armada going down, so they probably haven't seen the likes of that, and gosh, since the embargo, you know, I would probably.
Yeah, last year they had 23 boats and released 52 blues.
Is that right?
Which is pretty good catch rate, but
yeah,
we're going to more than triple the size of the tournament this year.
Yeah.
So
that's going to be great. I can't wait to hear about it. Now, how has the planning process and, you know, the legal issues or the permitting and all that, how has that been for you?
Well, I began to investigate that on my own and quickly ran into the Department of Commerce and the Department of the Treasury and the Coast Guard, and thought we could really use some professional help. So I have an old buddy who's an admiralty lawyer in Miami named Michael Moore.
Okay.
And it turns out that Michael actually has a Cuba practice. So the club engaged Moore and Company to assist us in getting all the permitting that would allow the fleet to join the tournament. And as it turns out, like you referenced, Dale, there's 12 general permits, and one of those is that athletic competition. Yeah. And with that in hand, we were able to get the Department of Commerce to give us an exemption from the previously required export permit, and from the U.S. Department of Treasury Office of Foreign Asset Control exempt from their permit. So the only permit we need is the U.S. Coast Guard's, it's called a CG 3300, which is a permit for U.S. flag vessels to enter Cuba territorial waters. And all of our boats are in the process now of applying for that CG 3300 permit, and we expect to have all our permitting done about mid-March.
Okay, great. And gosh, it must be getting all these boats together. I know there's got to be a lot of excitement among the club for this. And What is the plan? Do you have an itinerary kind of set up, or how are you going down?
We do, Dale, and our plan is to all the boats to rendezvous at the Stock Island Marina.
Okay.
On Stock Island in Key West on June 9th and 10th. And then we're going to have a pre-kickoff party that night at the marina. Then the next morning of the 11th, all the boats are going to idle out of the marina, and we're going to line up all 53 or 55 or 60 or however many we end up for a Bimini start. And Boat Picks is sending a helicopter down to film the Bimini start when everybody guns it and heads for Cuba.
Yeah.
So we'll arrive in Cuba on the 11th, and we'll have the 12th and 13th to pre-fish, and then the evening of the 13th is the captain's party. And then we fish 14, 15, we have a lay day on 16, and fish 17, 18, and then the awards dinner's the evening of the 18th, and on the 19th, the fleet will depart back to Key West.
Okay, great. Now, I guess if we're going, you're going there, are there any extra provisions, or, what do you expect once you get there,
Not much.
Not much, okay, yeah.
We've been forewarned about the scarcity of all supplies.
Okay.
Including bait.
Yeah.
We can get ice, and we can get fruit, and we can get vegetables, but other than that, you better have it on the boat.
Yeah.
So everybody's planning to bring plenty of provisions and all the normal maintenance and repair items, and we're prepared to, not be able to acquire anything. And the other issue, Dale, is as of today, U.S. credit cards are not accepted anywhere in Cuba. So even the fuel dock at Marina Hemingway, you have to pay for fuel in cash.
Okay.
So that makes it a little more difficult.
Yeah.
You also have to have a Cuban visa. And we've got a logistics company called Experience Cuba Culture actually handling our ground reservations, air travel, hotels, restaurants, and we're sponsoring a couple events for our members while we're out in Havana. So
Sure.
There's a lot of logistics involved. It's not like you can just leave Key West and come in. And the other thing we're working on is trying to expedite the Cuban customs clearance process, because historically, captains I've talked to that have been there, sometimes it could take 2 or 3 hours to clear customs. So you could imagine 53 boats stacked up and taking 3 hours and take 150 man hours. So I'm actually going down to Cuba next week to meet with the marina managers and the tournament director and customs to try to get an accelerated process.
Yeah, I wish you well with that. And, I have had the opportunity, I think it was about 2005, I had the opportunity to visit Cuba and the Hemingway Marina. And basically there's a bulkhead, there's a lot of different bulkheads, so you're going to be side 2. I'll be interested to find out how well, the electric and things like that, coming from a boat captain, those types of things, if the power is good and whatnot. But I'm sure they're preparing, as this embargo is lifted and our relations continue to improve with the country. It's, like I said, it's dock talk, and I'm real excited to hear about your trip. That's just going to be...
We've been assured, Dale, that they have 140 of those side 2 slips with 30 and 50 amp in fresh water. But I'm going to take my own electric tester, when I go down next week and test a few just to make sure.
Yeah. I'm sure some of the boats, you just prepare, you might have to run the Jenny all week. Who knows? But boy, that's going to be exciting. Now,
two other things quick.
Yeah, please.
We have some owners are planning to send their captain and crew down in advance and fly in.
Okay.
And the ground logistics company we're working with actually makes our flight reservations out of Miami for direct flights to Havana, and they'll issue your Cuban visa at the airport. So we pretty much have the air thing worked out, and the ground transportation. Hotel rooms are very scarce. There's so much American impact coming into Havana that it's real hard to find hotel rooms, but hopefully we can find enough to accommodate our crews.
Yeah, well, I know, from my experience when I was there, the people were wonderful. Everybody was so helpful. You know, and another thing you have to remember too is that, you know, every other country in this world is able to visit Cuba. And, you know, you think maybe seeing an American there, I mean, we might stand out with our new tennis shoes or whatnot, but, and our Casa del Mars or Smith sunglasses, but, you know, people have been going there. So I think, you know, they'll have their ducks in a row when it comes to, you know, accommodating everybody, and there's plenty of time for planning. But
and there's a Cuban fishing federation, and they basically adopt IGFA rules.
Okay.
But for this tournament, you're restricted to only 4 lines per boat.
Okay.
And it's an all tag and release tournament for billfish.
Yeah.
So we're actually working with the Billfish Foundation to acquire about 600 billfish tags for the fleet.
Oh, wow.
So,
hopefully you'll fill all those.
Yeah, I hope so.
What, going back to the tournament, what did you catch? What did they catch? Was it, you said marlin? It's a marlin tournament, or is it all species?
It's
billfish.
all billfish.
Okay.
And they have a point system for blues, whites, and stripes.
Okay.
And then for the largest tuna and for the largest dolphin.
Okay, yeah. And I know when I had the chance to fish off of there, we were just kind of basically a little bit east of the marina and just out in front of what they called the Russian embassy.
Right.
And I don't know if that's where they're still fishing, or, you know.
That's for some of the captains that have been, that's what they've confirmed. And
Yeah.
the tournament sets an east and west boundary.
Okay.
It's about 20 miles in each direction. So it would appear we have about 40 miles of coastline to prospect on, and we'll see how we do. But everybody says it's basically right offshore.
Yeah. And this is what I would think would be a peak time for marlin, or just billfish in general?
Supposed
or
to be.
yeah.
And of course, this is the 66th
Yeah.
tournament, and Hemingway actually won it 3 times himself.
He did.
You know, one other thing, Dale, that's interesting, the smallest boat we have going is a 27-foot Edgewater.
Okay.
The largest boat we have going is a 125-foot motor yacht, Westport. That's the mothership for a 64-foot Viking.
Okay.
And then we've got a 74-foot Hatteras motor yacht, and they pull a 39-foot Venture. So it's a real scattering of sizes, so
Wow.
it should be interesting.
That's interesting. What about, like, the event itself? I think it is a shotgun start, if I'm not mistaken.
It is every day. It's not lines in till 9, and it's lines out at 6 or 1800. So it makes for a long day. So it's hard to have events when the boats aren't getting back to the dock till 7 or maybe
Yeah.
7:30, depending on how far they ran. Except the last day, it's lines in at 9 and lines out at 2 in order to get back in time for
the ceremony.
for the awards dinner.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things you got to do when you get there is Hemingway had his little routine, I guess. Before he went out in the morning, he'd have his daiquiri, and it was at, I don't know, I went to his little bar, a Bodeguita or whatever the name is. You probably know
Yeah.
this. And then in the evening, he'd come in and he would go to another one of the restaurants and have his mojito.
Right.
So, you know, his bar is no bigger than this green screen right here. So you're like, okay, I'm going to Hemingway's bar, and you walk in and it's just like, really? You know, but it's got all the bar, you know, the bottles and the rum. And
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and another thing, as far as souvenirs, when you guys are returning, I was reading where you're allowed up to $400 worth of merchandise. And so that's just something to kind of keep in mind. I'm sure they'll go over that with you, but I know one of the government officials was just there and brought back a humidor and some rum, you know. So you'll probably, I don't know if you smoke cigars, but it'll be fun to, I'm sure there'll be a lot of cigar smoking.
I'm sure there will.
And rum drinking and fish catching. Sounds like a great party.
We're scheduling 3 different events while our members are in Havana. And we got contacted by the owner of Pilar Rum.
Yeah.
And some of you might have
Yeah.
had a chance to enjoy it. It's a great product. And anyway, he's bringing his boat and joining the flotilla for the tournament. But he's also going to fly in as Pilar Rum Girls and mixologists and a bunch of Pilar Rum and host a Pilar Rum night for our fleet. And so we're in the process of renting Hemingway's home, which is now a museum up in the hills above Havana. And that's where Pilar has been restored and is on display. So we think it's be a very special evening to have Pilar rum and the actual Pilar vessel, Hemingway's boat, and have our event at Hemingway's home. It should be a really wonderful evening.
Okay. Well, has there been anything in this process, anything that's surprised you about, organizing such a big event for the club? It's got to be a huge undertaking. I mean, to get that many boats.
It's almost a full-time job, and we have one full-time administrator coordinator that's helping us as well. So it's been a logistics challenge.
Yeah.
And we've been warned by our legal counsel to leave our firearms at home, absolutely no drugs, and no pornography or Playboy magazines.
Oh, really?
Leave those at
yeah,
home.
well, that makes sense. But how about, one of the things I've had people asking me, how are you guys getting for the vessels themselves, the boats? What about insurance? Now, that's something that comes up a lot when people are talking about, well, I can go to Cuba, but my insurance company won't cover me. So
I had that same situation. My marine insurance broker is Skip Smith of Smith Merritt.
Okay.
And he had our policy on Hope with AIG. And AIG will not write Cuban coverage. So I'd asked Skip to go find us an underwriter. And as it turns out, there's Lloyd's largest marine underwriter is an insurance company called XL. And they're based in New York. And they are writing Cuba policies. So in my case, I'm actually canceling my AIG policy and going with XL. So there are a couple carriers out there, and XL works with a number of brokers. So I would suggest anybody that's going, first point of contact might be Smith Merritt, because they're local.
Sure.
And they can get it done for you. So I know for myself and a lot of our bigger boats, we wouldn't go if we didn't have proper coverage.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
It's not worth the risk.
Yeah.
So there is a solution for that, which is great. So a lot of our boats were hesitant, and their companies weren't going to provide them insurance. So it turns out to be an excellent policy and good benefits.
Is that right? Well, good. Well, hopefully you won't have to use it. What about, if somebody's interested in possibly going down? I know you've got your hands full with everything, but could somebody reach out and possibly talk to you? Or is there still time for other boats to maybe come along and join the Stewart Sailfish Club? Talk about that.
There are, Dale. And one of the requirements, because of the invitation from the Hemingway came to the club, you have to be a member of the club.
Okay.
But a family membership's only $150 a year, and we've added, I think, 23 or 24 new members that join just to be able to go on the flotilla.
Great.
So they can get all the information you like. Just go to www.stewartsailfishclub.com and contact our office, and our administrator can provide you all the information and the sign-up forms and everything they need. So basically the club's acting as it's more or less like our tournament, and assisting all the owners and captains in obtaining all the permitting, visas, and everything they need to have a safe and enjoyable voyage.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an 80-plus boat tournament this year. So, I mean, considering that's going to be a lot of boats paddling around offshore out there. So I look forward to, hearing the results and hearing how your trip went. I'm excited for the club. It's like I said, it's unprecedented. So I wish you guys well. Thanks for sharing, the story here today. Is there anything else maybe that I didn't touch on that, as far as this trip and how it's been going?
I think you got it covered pretty well. If anybody has any questions, feel free to contact us at the Stewart Sailfish Club, and we'd be happy to provide all the information they need to decide whether they want to join the adventure.
Yeah, there you go. It's going to be an adventure. So again, Tom, thanks for coming in. I want to thank all of you for taking the time to sit here and listen to us and watch this episode of Dock Talk. I encourage you to subscribe to InTheBite, like us on Facebook, share us on, watch us on Twitter, Instagram. We're out there, and let us know how we're doing. So again, thanks for tuning in. Tom, I can't thank you enough, and look forward to having you again, buddy. All right, thank you very much.